is not the opposite of success. It's the pathway to it. Somewhere along the way, we were taught to fear failure, to treat it as proof we weren't good enough, to hide it like a shameful secret. But every person you've ever admired, every success story you've ever heard is built on a mountain of failures. They didn't get there by avoiding mistakes. They got there by using their mistakes as stepping stones, by refusing to let a loss define them, and by showing up again and again after the fall. The problem is we live in a culture obsessed with the highlight reel. We see the victory, the award, the finished product, and we miss the nights of doubt, the wrong turns, the broken plans. Success doesn't come in a straight line. It's messy, it's unpredictable. It's full of detours. And the only way to navigate it is to accept that failure isn't a dead end. It's feedback. Failure teaches you what nothing else can. It strips away illusion, looses you, and forces you to confront the truth about your preparation, your mindset, and your hunger. You can read all the books, listen to all the experts, but take all the courses. But nothing will grow you like falling flat on your face and having to get back up. That moment is when you decide, will you give your story over to defeat? Or will you let this chapter be the turning point? Every failure carries within it a lesson, but you have to be willing to look for it. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they quit too soon. They decide that the pain isn't worth it. They let one setback define their entire future. But the ones who win, the ones who actually make it, understand that failure is just the price of admission for doing anything great. They fail forward. They take the hit, learn the lesson, and move with more wisdom than they had before. Think about a baby learning to walk. They fall, they stumble, they bump into things, but they don't take that first tumble and decide walking just isn't for them. They get up, they try again, and eventually they succeed. Not because they never fell, but because they refuse to let falling stop them. That's the exact same principle that applies to your dreams. The truth is, if you aren't failing, you're not stretching yourself enough. You're playing it safe, staying in the shallow end of a life, avoiding the deep waters where growth happens. Failure means you're in the game. It means you're swinging. It means you care enough to try. The more you try, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the closer you get to success. But here's the key. You can't just keep failing the same way. You've got to fail smarter. That means analyzing what went wrong, making adjustments, and taking another shot with more precision. Every failure should make you sharper, not bitter. Too many people let bitterness eat them alive because they were so focused on the loss that they never mind the gold hidden in it. When you fail, don't just walk away. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? Where was I unprepared? Who can I learn from who's been here before? How can I approach this differently next time? Those questions turn failure into fuel. You'll also find that failure tests your resilience like nothing else. Anybody can keep going when things are smooth. But when everything falls apart, when your plans collapse, when people doubt you, that's when your true character is revealed. If you can push forward then, if you can bet on yourself when the odds are stacked, you become unstoppable. Success has a way of hiding the struggles that created it. You might see the business that's thriving now, but not the 10 pitches that got rejected before the first yes. You might see the best-selling book, but not the manuscript that was torn apart by editors. You might see the athlete winning championships, but not the years they spent on benches watching others play. All of those moments of failure are the real building blocks. It's tempting to think that once you succeed, the failures will stop. They won't. In fact, the higher you climb, the bigger the stakes, the harder the falls. The difference is by then, you'll have trained yourself to see them differently. You'll understand that failure is not a signal to retreat. It's a sign you're still growing. There's a reason most people never reach their full potential. They want the prize without the process. They want the glory without the grind. They want the success without the scars. But the scars are what make the story worth telling. They're proof you showed up, that you fought, that you risked. They remind you, and everyone watching, that you are willing to pay the price most people aren't. So don't be afraid to fail. Be afraid to stop trying. Be afraid to let fear of embarrassment keep you from taking the shot. Be afraid to let one convince you there will never be a yes. Understand that every misstep is part of your preparation. Every failure you survive makes you stronger and wiser and more dangerous to the limits you've been living under. You don't get to skip the failures on the way to success. You embrace them. You use them. You wear them like armor, because the people who win big are the ones who've learned to fail their way forward over and over until they reach the place they always knew they could. Failure is not final, it's feedback. Most people treat failure like the end of the road, as if one wrong turn means the entire journey is over. But failure is never a final verdict. It's simply information. It's a signal, a teacher, a mirror that reflects where we are, where we've grown, and where we still need to improve. When you understand this, you stop running from failure and start using it. You start asking what it's trying to teach you, instead of letting it stop you in your tracks. Failure doesn't mean you aren't good enough. It means you found a gap in your preparation, a weakness in your plan, or a blind spot in your vision. It's the universe showing you the areas you need to strengthen before you can handle the weight of success. Hey, if you try to skip this process, you might get lucky and win for a moment, but you won't have the foundation to sustain it. Feedback is the refining process, the polishing that shapes you into someone capable of holding on to the very thing you're chasing. The danger comes when you mistake feedback for identity. Too many people fail once and then start telling themselves a story that they're a failure. But there's a massive difference between failing at something and being a failure. The first is an event, the second is a choice. When you understand failure as feedback, you stop tying your worth to the outcome and start tying it to the effort, the growth, to the lessons learned along the way. Think about the greatest innovators, athletes, and leaders in history. They didn't reach the top by avoiding mistakes. They reached it by studying them. Every failed experiment gave them data. Every missed shot showed them where to adjust. Every lost deal revealed a truth about their strategy or their mindset. They didn't take failure personally. They took it seriously. They examined it, dissected it, and used the insights to come back stronger. Feedback is rarely comfortable. It can bruise your ego, shake your confidence, and make you question your abilities. But it's also priceless because it gives you clarity. It tells you exactly what isn't working so you can figure out what will. Without that clarity, you'd keep repeating the same moves, stuck in the same patterns, wondering why nothing changes. If you want to grow, you have to be willing to face feedback head on. And that means being open to criticism, not just from others, but from yourself. It means looking at your performance with honesty instead of defensiveness. It means asking better questions. What went wrong? Why? What did I miss? What can I do differently next time? And then most importantly, it means applying those answers with action. The most dangerous thing you can do after failure is nothing. Too many people stay down after a setback because they confuse discomfort with danger. Feedback will make you uncomfortable, but it won't destroy you. What destroys people is refusing to adjust, refusing to grow, and refusing to take the wisdom hidden in the loss and use it to win next time. Every failure contains a roadmap. It points to the skills you need to develop, the habits you need to change, the mindset you need to adopt. When you start seeing it this way, you actually welcome it. Not because you enjoy losing, but because you understand each loss brings to the close to the version of yourself who wins consistently. The key is to shift your relationship with failure. Stop treating it like an enemy and start treating it like a coach. Every setback holds a seed of greater opportunity. It's easy to look at a setback and see only the loss, the inconvenience, the disappointment. But inside every difficult moment is the potential for something better, something you may not have even considered. If the setback hadn't pushed you to think differently, life has a way of using closed doors to redirect you toward paths you never would have explored on your own. The challenge is that in the middle of it, the seed doesn't look like opportunity. It looks like frustration. It looks like a dead end. You have to be willing to look past the surface to find the potential buried underneath. Setbacks slow you down long enough to reassess. They make you stop running on autopilot and ask questions you might have avoided when things were going smoothly. They force you to get creative, to test new ideas, to find hidden strengths. A setback might delay your plan, but it can also sharpen it. Like a seed in the ground, the change that comes from a setback often happens beneath the surface. Where nobody can see it yet, the roots are developing before anything sprouts above the soil. There are countless stories of people who turned what seemed like crushing setbacks into defining moments of success. And a business owner who lost a major client and ended up diversifying their offerings, making the company stronger than ever. An athlete sidelined by injury who used the downtime to study the game more deeply and came back with a sharper strategy. These are not rare exceptions. They're examples of what happens when you look for the seed instead of obsessing over the storm. A setback can also strip away what's not essential. Sometimes you're carrying extra weight. Projects, relationships, habits that aren't actually aligned with your goals. When a setback hits, it can clear the clutter, leaving you with a clearer sense of what matters most. This clarity allows you to focus your energy in a way might not have been possible without the disruption. It's important to understand that the seed of opportunity isn't always obvious or immediate. Just like a farmer doesn't expect harvest the day after planting, you can't expect instant results after a setback. There's a waiting period, a time of cultivation, where you have to keep working even when you can't see the growth yet. The patience you develop during that season is part of the opportunity. It builds resilience and trust in the process. Your perspective determines whether a setback becomes a stepping stone or a stumbling block. If you see it as pure loss, you'll miss the chance to grow. If you choose to search for the seed, you'll begin to notice possibilities that others overlook. That job rejection might push you towards starting your own business. That failed product might lead you to create something more valuable. That personal challenge might deepen your empathy, making you more effective in serving others. The seed is always there. It just doesn't announce itself. You have to look for intentionally asking, what can this teach me? What doors could this open? How might this shape me into someone more capable? Over time, you realize setbacks aren't detours from success. They're part of the very road that leads there. On the seed you find and nurture. After a setback then grows to something far greater than the original plan you thought you wanted. Failing is proof that you're in motion. It shows that you're experimenting, taking chances, testing possibilities. When you take on something new, you won't get it perfect the first time. And that's exactly the point. Each mistake becomes a data point, teaching you how to refine your approach. Without those lessons, you remain stuck in a loop of what you've always done, comfortable but stagnant. Growth requires a willingness to be uncomfortable, to endure the sting of not getting it right, and to keep moving forward anyway. The fear of failure keeps most people in the shallow end of life. They convince themselves they're avoiding disappointment, but what they're really avoiding is progress. Playing it safe might protect your ego, but it costs you your evolution. You end up living small and you're capable of missing out on the version of yourself that can only emerge through trial, error, and persistence. The skills, confidence, and perspective that come from failing cannot be developed any other way. Failure also humbles you, and that humility is a vital part of growth. It forces you to admit you don't have it all figured out, which opens the door to learning. It makes you more receptive to advice, more willing to listen, and more motivated to improve. Success can make you complacent. Failure keeps you hungry. The hunger to get better is the fuel that drives long-term growth. And that fuel is often lit by the frustration of falling short. Think of anyone who's mastered their craft, whether in business, sports, art, or leadership. Behind their visible success is a long history of failures that pushed them to get sharper, faster, smarter. They didn't avoid failure. They embraced it as part of the training. Every missed shot, every lost deal, every wrong decision gave them feedback they couldn't have gained from theory alone. The more they failed, the more they learned. And the more they learned, the more they grew. Growth is not linear. It's a series of rises and falls. You push forward, you stumble, you recalibrate, you push again. Each time you recover from failure, you return stronger. This process strengthens not only your skills, but also your resilience, the mental toughness that allows you to handle bigger challenges in the future. Without experiencing failure, you never develop the grit required for the higher levels of success you might be aiming for. The real danger is not in failing, but in standing still. Comfort zones are invisible cages. They keep you safe, but they also keep you small. The moment you step beyond them, you invite failure. But you also invite transformation. You discover capabilities you didn't know you had, strengths you never tapped into, and perspectives that broaden your understanding of what's possible. Failure becomes a proof that you're evolving, and each one brings you closer to the person you're meant to become. Resilience is built in the recovery, not the victory. Winning feels good, but it's in the moments after you've been knocked down that your true strength is forged. Anyone can feel confident when everything is going their way, but resilience is born when circumstances strip you of momentum, comfort, and certainty, and you choose to get back up. It's in the recovery that you develop the muscle to endure, to adapt, and to keep going when the path is uphill and the outcome is unclear. Recovery is where you discover what you're really made of. When a setback hits, it tests your patience, your discipline, and your belief in yourself. The process of bouncing back forces you to work through frustration, disappointment, and doubt. Those emotions can break you if you let them sit unchallenged. But if you face them head on, they become the very resistance that makes you stronger. Like lifting a weight. It's the strain and the struggle that builds the capacity to handle more. Victory doesn't demand much reflection. When you win, it's tempting to simply celebrate and move on without deeply analyzing what led to that success. Recovery, on the other hand, that demands attention. It forces you to evaluate what went wrong, what you missed, and how you can improve. And again, it turns the spotlight on your habits, decisions, and mindset, revealing truths you might overlook in times of ease. That level of self-awareness is one of the most valuable tools you can carry forward. In recovery, you learn adaptability. The path back is rarely the same as the path that led you in. You might have to find new strategies, adjust your timing, or change your approach entirely. This flexibility becomes an asset that serves you in every area of life. When you've learned how to pivot in tough times, you're far less shaken by future challenges because you know you have the capacity to adjust. Resilience built in recovery is also deeply connected to persistence. Every time you choose to keep moving after a fall, You reinforce the habit of not giving up. It's not about ignoring pain or pretending the setback doesn't hurt. It's about refusing to let the pain have the final say. That choice strengthens your resolve, making it easier to push through the next obstacle you face. There's also a mental toughness that emerges only when you've been through recovery. You become more patient with the process and more willing to endure short-term discomfort for long-term gain. You stop expecting success to come without resistance and start seeing resistance as a natural, even necessary part of growth. This mindset shift makes you less likely to crumble when pressure rises because you've trained under pressure before. Recovery builds trust in yourself. The first time you bounce back from a setback, it might feel like a surprise. But as you do it again, you start to believe on a deep, unshakable level that no matter what happens, you have what it takes to come back. That belief becomes a quiet confidence that doesn't need validation from circumstances. It's rooted in experience, and it's what allows you to face the unknown with courage. While victory might put your name in lights, a recovery is what equips you to win again and again. It's the unseen work, the private battles, the moments when no one is watching but you choose to rise anyway. It's the patience to rebuild, the willingness to learn, and the determination to move forward even when the celebration is nowhere in sight.